Have you ever wondered why a narcissist seems to move on so quickly? Sometimes marrying someone new before the dust of your relationship has even settled? Why they post smiling photos, share grand gestures of love, and seem to be living out the fairy tale they promised you, but never delivered? Here's the truth. Narcissists don't marry for love. They marry for revenge. And the person they pull into this twisted performance, their new partner, their so-called upgrade, often suffers even more than you did. In this video, we're going to explore one of the most painful and confusing aspects of narcissistic relationships. What really drives them to jump into new marriages so quickly, and why those marriages are rarely the happy endings they appear to be. We'll look beneath the surface of those polished Instagram posts and charming wedding photos to reveal what's really going on behind closed doors. By the end, you'll have a clearer understanding of what narcissistic revenge truly looks like, and why the person they chose after you may actually be enduring something worse. Understanding this dynamic is essential, not just for healing from what you went through, but also to protect your peace of mind going forward. When you understand the psychology behind their choices, you stop blaming yourself. You stop romanticizing what they do with someone else. And most importantly, you stop hurting over a lie that was never meant to uplift anyone. It was meant to punish. Not just you, but everyone involved. And the more you understand that, the freer you become. So stay with me. This may be uncomfortable at times, but I promise it's also incredibly freeing. Because when you see the truth clearly, you stop walking around in emotional chains that were never yours to carry. To truly understand why narcissists marry for revenge rather than love, we need to take a closer look at the core of narcissistic behavior. At its heart, narcissism is not about confidence or self-assuredness. It's about deep insecurity, masked by a carefully constructed false self. This false self demands constant validation, admiration, and control. Love, in its true form, mutual, vulnerable, compassionate, is a threat to the narcissist's carefully guarded facade. It requires authenticity, and for a narcissist, authenticity feels like exposure. Psychologically, narcissism falls under what's known as narcissistic personality disorder, a condition marked by an inflated sense of importance, a need for excessive admiration, and a profound lack of empathy. While narcissists may present themselves as charming and charismatic, their relational patterns are often explosive and manipulative. Relationships, to them, are not spaces for mutual growth and emotional intimacy. Instead, they are tools for image maintenance, control, revenge, and ego reinforcement. In the context of romantic relationships, narcissists often idealize their partners in the beginning. This is part of what's called the idealization, devaluation, discard cycle. They start off by putting you on a pedestal, making you feel chosen, special, even irreplaceable. But this phase isn't real. It's a setup. It's designed to hook you emotionally so that later, when they begin to devalue and discard you, they still retain power over your sense of self-worth. When the relationship begins to crumble, often because the narcissist's need for constant admiration isn't being fulfilled the way it once was, they don't just move on. They replace. And this replacement is rarely neutral. It's performative, it's pointed, it's often rushed. The new relationship, especially when it escalates quickly into marriage, isn't about love. It's about sending a message. This is where the concept of narcissistic revenge comes into play. To the narcissist, your resistance, your boundaries, or even just your decision to walk away is interpreted not as a personal choice, but as an injury to their ego. And narcissists don't process wounds like emotionally healthy people. They seek to retaliate. One of the most powerful ways they believe they can do this is by showing you they've moved on to someone better. not because they've healed, not because they've grown, but because they want you to hurt the way they think you made them hurt. But remember, this isn't conscious in the way most people understand it. Narcissists don't sit down and map out a revenge marriage like a villain in a movie. It's far more subtle and far more psychologically driven. Their actions are compulsive. They are driven by a need to maintain superiority, to regain control of the narrative, and to avoid ever looking inward at their own emptiness. When a narcissist marries again, quickly, it often has very little to do with love. It has everything to do with image, with punishment, and with power. And the person who becomes their next partner, the so-called new supply, is not stepping into a sanctuary. They are stepping into a carefully staged reenactment of a relationship that's already failed once. Only now the stakes are higher and the cruelty is often more refined. The central issue we're dealing with here is the illusion of love that narcissists create when they enter new relationships, especially when they rush into marriage. From the outside looking in, it can seem like they've finally found the one, that they're capable of deep connection, or that perhaps you were the problem all along. That's exactly the narrative they want you and the rest of the world to believe. But the truth is far more disturbing. These marriages are not built on love, respect, or emotional growth. They're built on control, image management, and psychological retaliation. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is that narcissists move on quickly because they're over it. In reality, they never process loss in a healthy way. Instead, they scramble to reassert control, to escape the emotional discomfort of abandonment, whether real or perceived, and to win. Yes, for a narcissist, relationships are a game of power, and losing a partner isn't about the emotional pain of heartbreak. It's about the threat to their ego. And when their ego is injured, they don't retreat to heal. They retaliate. The issue becomes even more alarming when we consider the role of the new supply, the person who steps into the narcissist's life, just as you step out. This individual is often unknowingly used as a pawn in a much larger emotional game. They are love-bombed, idealized, and swept off their feet. They're sold a fantasy, a perfect love story filled with romantic gestures and promises of forever. But what they don't realize is that they are not being chosen for who they are. They're being chosen for what they represent. They are a symbol, a tool, a living billboard that says, "Look how quickly I moved on. Look how happy I am without you." And while the narcissist may appear to be thriving, the new partner is slowly being pulled into the same toxic pattern you likely experienced, only with more intensity. Why? Because now the narcissist feels even more pressure to prove something, not just to the world, but to themselves. They need the relationship to be seen as a success, no matter the cost to the person they're with. And as a result, the new supply often finds themselves isolated, confused, and increasingly responsible for the narcissist's fragile emotional state. They are expected to meet impossible emotional demands, provide endless validation, and tolerate subtle or overt forms of abuse, all while being paraded as the perfect partner. Meanwhile, you may be watching all of this unfold, wondering how the person who hurt you so deeply could move on so fast and seem so happy. This is the emotional trap. You are meant to doubt yourself. You are meant to question your worth, your memory of the relationship, even your sanity. The narcissist's new marriage becomes a carefully orchestrated smear campaign in disguise, aimed directly at your emotional healing. So the real problem isn't just that narcissists marry for the wrong reasons, it's that they weaponize marriage itself. They turn one of life's most sacred commitments into a stage for revenge. In doing so, they continue to inflict harm, not only on you, but on the person they claim to love next. What looks like a celebration of new beginnings is often just the beginning of another emotional nightmare. To understand why narcissists use marriage as a tool for revenge rather than a genuine act of love, we have to look deeper into the psychological mechanisms that drive their behavior. At the core of this issue is the narcissist's inability to process shame and vulnerability in a healthy, integrated way. For most people, the end of a relationship, especially one that was meaningful, can be a time for reflection, grief, and eventually growth. But for the narcissist, the end of a relationship is a direct assault on their carefully crafted identity. It's not simply a breakup, it's a narcissistic injury. This injury threatens the false self they present to the world, a self-image built on superiority, desirability, and control. When that image is cracked, say through rejection, exposure, or even simple boundary setting by their partner, the narcissist feels an intense and intolerable sense of humiliation. They don't just feel pain, they feel, and when they feel attacked, their immediate response is to restore power and control, often through revenge disguised as rebirth. Marrying someone new becomes the fastest and most socially acceptable way to do that. It sends a message, not only to the ex-partner, but to their community, to family, friends, and even to themselves, that they are still desirable, still in control, and still winning. This isn't love, it's psychological compensation for a deep, unhealed wound. And unfortunately, the new partner is drawn into this dynamic without realizing they are being used as a mirror to reflect back the narcissist's ideal self. Another critical factor is the narcissist's addiction to supply. Narcissistic supply is any form of attention, admiration, or emotional reaction that feeds their ego. When they lose one source of supply, say a partner who has woken up to the manipulation and left, they immediately look to replace it. But in the case of revenge, the narcissist is not just looking to refill that emotional void. They are looking to upgrade it in a way that humiliates the previous source. That's why the new partner is often flaunted, idealized publicly, and elevated to a pedestal in a performative display of happiness. But behind closed doors, the narcissist begins to feel the same emptiness creeping in. Why? Because the wound was never truly addressed, only covered up. And eventually, the new partner stops being a symbol of success and starts becoming a reflection of the narcissist's internal chaos. The love bombing fades, the demands increase, and the same cycle of emotional abuse begins again, sometimes more intensely than before, because the stakes are higher and the narcissist is even more desperate to prove their worth. Furthermore, narcissists lack emotional empathy. While they may mimic concern or affection when it serves their image, they do not deeply connect with the emotional realities of others. This makes it easier for them to justify using someone else for their own ends. They don't truly see the new partner as a person with feelings, needs, and boundaries. They see them as an object, something to own, display, and control. This objectification is why these revenge marriages often escalate quickly. There's no genuine process of getting to know the other person, no building of emotional intimacy. It's a race to secure the illusion, to shut down the previous chapter, and to mask the narcissist's own deep-rooted fears of abandonment, failure, and worthlessness. In the end, what we see is not a love story. It's a trauma response wrapped in glitter and vows. A desperate attempt to avoid self-confrontation by launching headfirst into another fantasy that, once again, someone else will eventually pay the price for. When faced with the painful reality of a narcissist marrying someone new for revenge, not love, the most powerful solution begins not with them, but with you. Healing starts by shifting the focus inward, away from their performance, and back to your own emotional truth. The narcissist's new relationship is designed to provoke you, to pull you back into the cycle through confusion, jealousy, or self-doubt. The most effective approach is to resist the bait entirely. Their marriage is not your responsibility to interpret or your burden to carry. It is an illusion crafted to control your perception. The moment you stop feeding that illusion with your energy, you begin to reclaim your power. A key part of the healing process involves emotional detachment, which does not mean you stop feeling. It means you stop assigning meaning to their actions that harms your peace. It means accepting that their marriage is not a reflection of your worth, nor is it proof that they've changed. In truth, it's likely a repetition of the same patterns you endured, only now repackaged for a new audience. Emotional detachment helps you observe without absorbing. It allows you to see the manipulation clearly while remaining grounded in your own reality. Another essential step is reinforcing your own narrative. Narcissistic abuse often leaves survivors questioning their memory, judgment, and instincts. When you see the narcissist with someone new, those doubts can intensify. This is where journaling, therapy, or support groups become invaluable. They help you process what really happened, name the abuse for what it was, and validate your experiences. When you hold firm to your truth, no amount of posturing or performative love from the narcissist can shake your foundation. No contact or limited contact, especially when children or shared responsibilities are not involved, is one of the most practical and powerful tools in breaking free from the narcissist's emotional hold. When done with intention and support, it creates a space where their attempts to provoke or punish you no longer land. You create boundaries, not just in physical space, but in your mental and emotional world as well. This boundary gives you room to breathe, rebuild, and rise. It's also important to cultivate a strong support system. Isolation is a common after effect of narcissistic abuse, and the shame that lingers can make reaching out difficult. But you were never meant to walk this path alone. Whether it's a trauma-informed therapist, an online community, or a few trusted friends, having people who understand narcissistic dynamics and can reflect your reality back to you without judgment is life-changing. Their presence reminds you that you are not crazy, not dramatic, and not alone. Lastly, invest deeply in self-connection and self-worth. This might mean taking time to rediscover your passions, setting new goals, or even redefining what love means to you. The narcissist's marriage may have been meant as a weapon against you, but it doesn't have to work. When you begin living your life with clarity, dignity, and alignment, their attempts to stay in your head begin to lose power. You shift from reacting to rebuilding, and in that rebuilding, something sacred is born, not just survival, but transformation. The benefits of applying these solutions go far beyond simply recovering from a broken relationship. When you choose to emotionally detach, reclaim your narrative, and enforce boundaries, you're not just surviving the aftermath of narcissistic abuse, you're reshaping your entire internal. You are creating a life that no longer bends to manipulation, one that no longer dances to the rhythm of someone else's dysfunction. And that in itself is freedom. One of the most profound benefits is the return of your emotional clarity. When you stop fixating on the narcissist's new relationship, their curated displays of happiness lose their power over you. You begin to see their actions for what they are, a performance, not a transformation. Instead of asking, "Why wasn't I enough?" you begin to ask, "Why did I ever believe I had to prove my worth to someone who couldn't see it?" That shift changes everything. It returns the focus to your healing, your growth, your wholeness. Another powerful outcome is restored self-trust. Narcissistic abuse has a way of distorting your inner compass. You doubt your intuition, question your reactions, and second guess your decision. But the more you stand firm in your boundaries and honor your own experiences, the more you rebuild that trust with yourself. You stop outsourcing your worth to someone else's approval, and instead, you begin to believe in your own voice again. That voice becomes your anchor, not their attention, not their validation, not their theatrics. You also gain emotional sovereignty, a state where your peace is no longer dictated by what others do or don't do. The narcissist can post wedding pictures, make grand declarations, or pretend to have changed, and you won't flinch because you know what's real. You've seen behind the mask, and more importantly, you've chosen to step away from the stage. That kind of sovereignty isn't just healing, it's empowering. It's a quiet strength that no one can take from you again. Another deeply rewarding benefit is the ability to form healthier connections. When you've done the work of detachment, boundary setting, and self-reflection, you become more discerning about who you allow into your life. You're no longer attracted to people who mimic the narcissist's intensity or charm. Instead, you begin to gravitate toward relationships that feel safe, steady, and nourishing. You are no longer trying to fix broken people. You're building your life with those who already know how to love. And perhaps one of the most important outcomes is that you become a mirror of possibility for others. Your healing doesn't just change your story, it becomes part of someone else's survival. When you speak your truth, when you live freely after being manipulated and discarded, when you rise after being used as a target of revenge, you give others hope. You become living proof that even after the deepest betrayal, healing is not only possible, it's powerful. Ultimately, these solutions don't just help you move on from the narcissist. They help you move into yourself. They give you back your identity, your voice, and your vision for the future. You become someone who not only understands what happened, but who uses that understanding to build something stronger, wiser, and more grounded than anything the narcissist could ever destroy. So if you've been watching from a distance, seeing the narcissist marry someone new, and wondering what it all means, know this. It's not the fairy tale they want you to believe. It's not healing. It's not love. It's retaliation wrapped in roses. But you have something far more powerful than any illusion they can create. You have the truth. And with that truth comes the ability to reclaim your strength. Let this be your reminder. The narcissist's need to win doesn't define your worth. Their next relationship doesn't erase the harm they caused or the strength it took for you to walk away. You didn't lose, you learned, you grew, you broke free from something that was never real, love to begin with. And that's not a failure, that's a victory. One they'll never truly understand because the kind of peace you're building comes from within, not from proving anything to anyone. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on what you've survived and what you're still capable of becoming. Your healing is not linear, but every step you take away from their shadow is a step closer to your own light. And you are not alone in this. There are countless others walking this same path, quietly, bravely, and together, we are rewriting what strength looks like after emotional abuse. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you seen this pattern play out? Have you watched a narcissist leap into a new relationship and wondered what was really going on behind the scenes? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might just be the voice someone else needs to hear today. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this video. If you found it helpful or validating, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. It helps more people find this message and reminds the algorithm that these conversations matter. And if you want to stay connected for more content like this, don't forget to follow on social media where we keep the conversation going beyond the videos. Until next time, stay grounded, stay empowered, and never let someone else's illusion shake the truth you in your soul.